You might not have been able to hear that all, but that was basically the harmonic series, the first 6 notes of the harmonic series. The higher up they get, the harder it is to do them and to hear them. So you might not totally heard them, but I'm going to show on my piano in a second. But the idea is that, like, when you're playing a string on a guitar or really any string instrument, you're hearing that fundamental tone. This is the fundamental tone. This is the pitch. This is what your ear is latching onto as the pitch. But what creates the timbre of the instrument is the relative volume of the harmonics. And how you get the harmonics is by these ratios. And they're very simple ratios. If you divide this string in half, you get twice the frequency. And so you get an octave, you get a higher sound, and it's 2-to-1. So I don't know what number hertz or whatever it is, but you get so this is like an E note on a guitar, right? This is the octave, okay? And then if you divide the string into thirds, you get the fifth. Oops. And that is the third harmonic, the fifth. And then if you divide it into fourths, you get the fourth harmonic, which is another octave of E, okay? And then this is the hard one. The fifth harmonic is a third. Da. That's a third, so that's the fifth harmonic. Oh man, I did it. And that's the fifth. Da. There's a seventh harmonic. It's like a flat 7. And then, oh my gosh, I got it. That's the eighth harmonic, and that's also an octave of E. So what's kind of cool about how the guitar is set up when you play a major chord is that you're hitting all the harmonics. Is that a coincidence? Heck no. And so let's see if this keyboard works here. We gotta turn it on. All right, so there's my fundamental tone. All right. And there's my octave of that tone. It's an E. Here's my, which is the second harmonic, sorry. And then, here, I'll hit it again. So, fundamental, second harmonic, third harmonic, fourth harmonic, fifth harmonic, sixth harmonic. So, if you're playing music and you're playing guitar and there's someone playing a bass guitar, they're hitting a low E, and then you're strumming an E on your guitar, you are hitting the bass player's hitting the fundamental, and then you're hitting the next 5 harmonics. And then if you're hitting this E string, that's the 8th harmonic. It skips the 7th because it's not as valuable musically. It introduces a little bit of dissonance, and that's not always what we're going for. But so when I'm kind of been obsessed with the harmonic series lately, and I wanted to give it a little lesson about it because I gotta get this information out of my head. I've been thinking about it too much, and I think if I do this lesson, it'll help me move on to whatever I need to learn about next. So let's go to C on the piano. Oops. So the whole point of why I want to be talking about this is the harmonic series is oftentimes like a footnote in like a college level class. It's on music, or it's in the realm of acoustics or audio engineering. It's not always for musicians, it's not always like this practical, it doesn't have a practical application necessarily. Although it is where we get our most, the intervals of the octave and the fifth and the fourth. And then we get all these in ancient Greek times, like Pythagoras, he's most popular for talking about these ratios which determine music and the harmonic series. But it's kind of inaccessible to most people, and nowadays it's very like obscure and mathematical and abstract and kind of hard to understand, and even harder to relate to music. So but for me, I've always been curious about it as a musician. I love music. I love understanding. I love like music theory, but I'm always trying to. One of my goal as a music theory person is to also, I guess, not get too. I like to keep it simple and practical, but I also love just kind of like the phenomena of it too, and trying to understand why it works or how it works or where it comes from. And I kind of feel like recently I've had some insight into the harmonic series, which has kind of tied a lot of this together, and is given me it's given me just like a lot of food for thought, and just given me confidence and trusting myself, and because I'm the best barometer, or I mean, I'm the only thing I have to go on besides what someone tells me. But like, you are the instrument for sensing how music works. And as a musician, you're listening and responding to your instrument, or, when you're playing music, you're responding to your instrument. And so ultimately how you understand it is what's the most important. And so this is given me some tools to like really dive a little deeper into to feeling music and like listening, and also just breaking out of my patterns of how I do things, and focusing on listening first. And I think that's just great advice for a musician. Like the more you can like listen with depth and kind of understanding and space, the more you can let things develop naturally on their own. Anyway, so what exactly is this? So let's just look at how it works on the piano. So we talked about this idea that when you have one tone, there's like, when you're hearing a musical tone, it's actually a composite of tones, and kind of the distribution of volume of these overtones of the harmonic series that you're hearing gives the timbre and the character of your instrument. Okay. But what we're kind of interested in is like, what are these notes, and what's the musical value of these notes? Okay. So there we go. We got our root note, our pitch. Now the second harmonic is an octave. The third harmonic is a fifth. The fourth harmonic is an octave. The fifth harmonic is a third, and the sixth harmonic is a fifth. And what is so cool about this is it's like you got the root and the bass, you got that fifth, and then you got in the fourth and fifth and sixth, you've got a triad. And a triad is like it's a major triad. It's like the major triad is just one of the most, it's like one of the building blocks of music. It's one of the most important ones. And so, what I think is interesting, that like every time you hit a note, it has an overtone to it. So contained within that is a triad. Okay. So yeah, so it's got a triad. And so this is kind of an interesting thing that I've been trying to understand. So like all of those notes have overtones too if you play them, right? So we already know what the triad of C is. It's a C major triad, but then that third harmonic is a G. So what happens if we play that? We get a harmonic of G as well. Okay, so I'm going to play this. This is the harmonic series for a G note. Okay, hang on. Okay, so in that top, you can't see it, but oops, let's see. Let's just bring an octave lower. G, B, D, okay? So we get the fourth and fifth, sixth harmonic of the G note is GBD, okay? And that's the 5 chord in, in diatonic music theory. You got the 1 chord based off of the 1 and the 5. And like those are kind of the most important chords. Those are the most consonant chords. You got the 1 and then the 5 is the most consonant. And or maybe someone would maybe that's controversial. Maybe it's the 4th, but they're generally consonant, especially compared to like the minor chords and the diminished chord, the 7th chord. So we got those chords. Now what's interesting is like when you're playing a C note and a G together, you've got those notes. You've got the C, and you've got the. And these are, I'm going to invert that G like that. So these notes are all like the 4th and 5th, the 4th, 5th, and 6th harmonic of each of these chords are like interacting with each other, even though we only hear these 2 notes, contained within those notes are these upper level harmonics, right? Let's see. Shoot. There we go. Now you can see it. So there's like a little bit of dissonant there. It doesn't sound as settled as just the C major chord on its own. But it's interesting. But it gets even worse. It gets even more dissonant. It's like, oh, well, there's an E. There's an E in there. So what's the E? Okay. There's the E harmonic series. Now what happens if we play a C chord and an E at the same time? It's very dissonant, okay? So this is kind of what's happening in like the what's the word? In like the overtones series, like the way the overtones are interacting, and that's what creates, even in a major chord, when you play all the notes of it, they kind of interact in the upper harmonics interact in this way and create dissonance, which gives you, even though like this is just a major chord and you don't hear the dissonance as much, but it's happening and kind of creating the ability to create movement with the higher overtones, because those overtones are contained within these 3 tones. Okay. But that, I think that's interesting because it can give kind of an idea of when you get even more complicated music, like how those overtones are interacting. But right now we want to keep things as simple as possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a scale out of C and then, G. So the first, like the 3rd overtone, like the first time the note switches in the C harmonic series, that 3rd harmonic is a G. So we want to build a scale that uses C and G. Now the other thing that we're going to do is, so we went up to get that G, but what I want to now ask is, what if C was the 5th of another note? That other note that C is the 5th is F. Okay, so now we want to look, and this is the 4 chord in the key of C, right? So it's just kind of interesting that like, so we went up to the 5th of G, and then we wanted to do what's called an undertone to figure out what is C the 5th of. Okay. And now if we want to figure out the series of this, the overtones or the harmonic series, we're going to do that right now. So there's my F, there's my octave, okay? My 3rd overtone is a C, and then my 4th overtone is an F, my 5th overtone is an A, and my 6th overtone is a, oh, we can't see that one, but it's a C. Okay, I'm going to do that right here. And it creates an F major chord, and this is the 4 chord in the key of C. So there's our 1 chord, okay? This is based off of the overtone for C, okay? Then we go up a 5th, and then we get our G chord. This is the 5 chord, okay? And then we have an overtone for, if we go down and what C is the 5th of F, Okay, we get the 4 chord. And so if you know about music, like 3 chords in the truth, what we're talking about right now is 3 chords in the truth. These are the 3 most commonly used chords, okay, in the world. So much music uses these chords. And so I know probably people argue with that, and you're probably right, but these chords are very important, and especially just to Western music theory, this is like what the most popular chords are, and these are the most consonant chords. These are the ones, like the most safe chords without getting very complicated. And I want to just focus on that because of what you can learn within this really safe chord net or chord family or whatever. And what we're going to be talking about is how melody relates to this, because these notes are like when you're playing a C chord, like when I guess how I kind of got into this was understanding like improvising on guitar, chord tone targeting, right? Where it's like a phrase where you start on one chord or one chord tone, which is like if you're playing a C chord, C, E, or G, and then you end on a chord tone of the next chord. So like, and it just sounds naturally like music. It sounds like something that's, a piece of music, but I just made it up because I'm following those kind of rules of what harmonically feels good and melodically as well. So, but then I kind of started to realize like the chord tone targeting thing. Sorry, I'm just going to get this out of the way. The chord tone targeting thing is really just how melody works. And if you study like folk music and just the music that a lot of people play, it's what people are just naturally doing without even being told. They're just landing on those notes, the chord tones. And so this is kind of the reasoning behind it. It's because this is like a really safe, there's not much where you can go wrong, and it's just fun and it sounds good. It feels good. So that was me just kind of like improvising, playing these chords and then doing these like phrases where I'm like landing on one chord tone and going to the next. So I hope with what I just talked about that you can kind of see why this works and like this and how it relates to the overtone series, how we came up with this scale. Or actually, I don't think I covered that, but like, there's your C chord, and then here's your G chord, right? But if I take the top notes, like that, let's see, the top note, the D, the fifth of G, and I put it down here, right? And then I do the F chord, right there. Oops. F and A, and then C right there. So if I get all the white keys on the piano, and that's what creates do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. But the problem is when people learn just like, oh, here's the major scale and here's the chords, it's like it doesn't really give you a lot of, I guess, meaning or context to like understand like why you would play that. And I think people just figure it out naturally or intuitively. But the overtone series or the harmonic series, sorry, the reason I keep confusing those two is because the overtone series when you're playing a musical tone, it's like the same thing, like the fundamental tone and the second overtone, third overtone, the numbers are a little different because the fundamental and the harmonic, I don't know, I get them confused, but they're pretty much the same thing, except Harmonic series means that it's a musical tone, whereas non-musical things can have overtones that are like non-harmonic, like noise, basically. That's kind of the difference between music and noise is, are the overtones following the harmonic series, or is it something else? Because like if you knock on, something like this, it's not really musical, although there might be some tone in there. It doesn't have all the notes because it's like a solid object. It's not able to vibrate freely. But if you just go around and hit objects, most of them are going to be noisy, but every once in a while you might hit something and be like, oh, that actually has a musical sound. And that's because it has those harmonics and it has a tone that's supported by the harmonic series. It's not just that one tone by itself. It's multiple, the composite sounds of a musical tone. But anyway, so the harmonic series kind of gives a little bit of explanation of why these notes work together and why they're grouped together in a certain way. And even though we're just focusing on like the 1-4-5 and we're focusing on like Western music theory, it gives you kind of like a jumping off point to then see like how you could play with this. And there's no right or, like in music theory, it's like, oh, this chord, then this chord, then this chord. But with, music theory is kind of just like built on top of the overtone series. The overtone series is like, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. It's all the same. It's physics, it's like the hardware. But then culturally, in different cultures, like they're slightly different, and like the tuning is kind of changed over time, for one reason or another. Like, in the 1800s, I don't know when exactly we started using equal tempered, music, but, basically to be able to modulate within keys easier, but for pianos and keyboards and stuff. But, back in like the, 2000 years ago, they didn't modulate between different keys in the same way that we do. It was a little simpler. They were just playing, maybe the 1-4-5 chord, or I guess I don't know what they were playing, but the harmonic series, I guess, is constant. And over time and in different places in the world, there's so many different interpretations of it. And so that's kind of what I love about it, is it gives you kind of this foundation and language that then you can make your own rules around it. Because in the rule, like I kind of feel like your own rules that you develop or your own patterns that you do, it kind of creates the output of what you do. It's part of the process. So some people don't ever really understand any of this. They just play music intuitively, or they just, they're just sitting around singing with their friends, or pick up a guitar and self-taught, and I think that's a really cool thing, because they're just using their ear to listen, and your ear kind of teaches you the harmonic series. But then it's cool to kind of like understand it a little bit and then build on it and be able to be more intentional. It just, I don't know, it's just a great tool to understand. So I hope that this introduced you to the idea and made you a little bit more interested. There's a ton of great videos on YouTube that show it in a more graphic way, with animations and stuff. This is a very lo-fi video, but I wanted to get this idea out because I just haven't been able to stop thinking about it, and just showing how like basically the chords, like the chord tones that build up the 1, 4, and 5 create the major scale, and that that's how, like, understanding like the melody that you can make with those notes. That's really what I want to get across, because I don't know, I'm feeling like it is kind of abstract when I'm talking about it, but when I'm sitting down with an instrument, it's very intuitive. And so I don't know if this is helpful for anyone, but it's been very interesting to me to kind of discover, and I'm going to keep working on making this maybe even more interesting and structure, and so that I can communicate it in a way that helps people. So helps people understand it. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.